Alright team, Yusuf Matundala here, and today we're venturing where few dare to tread, even in conversation. Welcome to Global Tracks. Today, we're diving into the top 10 most dangerous travel destinations in 2025. These aren't your average holiday spots. These are places where survival is a daily challenge, where the environment itself can be your greatest adversary, and where human conflict casts a long, dark shadow. It's about understanding the risks, respecting the dangers, and arming ourselves with knowledge. From crime-ridden cities where every corner can hide a threat, to regions plagued by natural disasters that can strike without warning, these places are flagged as high risk for travelers by global authorities. We're talking about locations where governments advise extreme caution or outright avoidance. Think political instability that can erupt in an instant, active conflict zones where the rules of engagement are blurred, and areas where basic infrastructure, the kind we take for granted, is a distant memory. This isn't about thrill-seeking, it's about awareness. Knowledge is power, especially when you're talking about navigating the world's toughest terrains and most volatile situations. So, stay tuned as we reveal the stats, warnings, and everything you need to know to stay safe. We'll break down why these locations make the list, what the specific threats are, and what the experts are saying. This is crucial information, whether you're an avid explorer, a global professional, or simply someone keen to understand the complexities of our world. Let's get into it. First up, Afghanistan. This is a land of stark beauty, towering mountains, and ancient history, but it's also a place etched with decades of conflict. The U.S. Department of State consistently flags Afghanistan as a high-risk destination, and it's not hard to see why. Ongoing conflict and the persistent threat of terrorism mean the situation on the ground can change in a heartbeat. You've got to have your wits about you, constantly scanning, constantly aware. The very air can feel thick with tension. This isn't a place for the unprepared or the faint-hearted. It demands respect and extreme caution. The Global Peace Index consistently ranks Afghanistan as one of the least peaceful countries on Earth. That's a sobering statistic, a stark reminder of the daily realities for those who live there, and the extreme dangers for any outsider. We're talking about a complex web of tribal loyalties, geopolitical pressures, and deeply entrenched militant groups. Navigating this landscape requires more than just a map. It requires an understanding of undercurrents that run deep, currents that can pull you under before you even know you're in deep water. It's a true test of resilience. Think about the terrain itself, rugged, unforgiving, vast. The Hindu Kush Mountains are a formidable barrier, and the deserts can be just as challenging. In a survival situation here, you're battling not just human threats but also the elements. Water sources can be scarce, shelter hard to find, and extreme temperatures, both hot and cold, can push you to your limits. Every decision counts. Every calorie expended needs to be justified. It's about making the right call, time and time again, when the pressure is immense. The warnings from international bodies are clear: avoid all non-essential travel. And if you absolutely had to be there, your preparation would need to be meticulous. Understanding local customs is paramount, as is having reliable local contacts, people you can trust implicitly. But even then, the risks are immense. Kidnapping for ransom, IEDs, suicide attacks, and direct engagements between conflicting forces are all very real possibilities. You'd need an exit strategy for your exit strategy. Ultimately, Afghanistan is a place where your survival skills would be tested to the absolute extreme. It's a sobering reminder that some parts of the world remain incredibly dangerous, demanding a level of awareness and preparedness that goes far beyond your average travel checklist. The key here is information, heeding the warnings, and understanding that some frontiers are best observed from a distance, with a deep respect for the challenges they represent. It's about making smart choices to stay safe. Next, we turn our attention to Syria. For over a decade, this ancient land, rich in history and culture, has been ravaged by a devastating civil war and the relentless scourge of terrorism. The UK Foreign Travel Advice, among many other international bodies, strongly discourages all travel to the region, and for very good reason. The front lines in this conflict are often fluid and unpredictable, and the risk of being caught in crossfire or targeted by extremist groups is exceptionally high. It's a heartbreaking situation, a beautiful country torn apart. The infrastructure in many parts of Syria has been decimated. We're talking about cities in ruins, essential services like water and electricity severely disrupted, and a healthcare system struggling to cope. In such an environment, even a minor injury or illness can become a life-threatening situation. Access to reliable communication can be difficult, making it incredibly challenging to call for help or even let loved ones know you're safe. These are the harsh realities when a country is engulfed in prolonged conflict. The threat of terrorism remains acute across Syria. Groups like ISIS, though weakened, still maintain a presence and the capability to launch attacks. This includes bombings, shootings, and kidnappings. Foreign nationals are often specifically targeted, The danger isn't confined to specific zones, it's a pervasive risk that casts a shadow over the entire country. You'd need to operate with an almost sixth sense for danger, constantly assessing your surroundings, trusting your gut instincts implicitly, because the warning signs can be subtle. Travel advisories are not issued lightly. When governments tell their citizens to avoid a country entirely, it's based on credible intelligence and a thorough assessment of the risks. For Syria, these warnings are unequivocal. The U.S. Department of State echoes these concerns, highlighting the dangers of arbitrary detention, shelling and airstrikes. It's a multifaceted threat environment where dangers can come from multiple directions, often with little to no warning. Preparedness here means acknowledging the overwhelming odds. If you were to find yourself in such a scenario, your primary focus would be evasion and extraction. Local knowledge would be critical, but finding trustworthy sources in a fractured society is a monumental challenge. The psychological toll of operating in such an environment is also immense. Constant vigilance, the ever-present threat of violence, and the human suffering you'd witness would test even the strongest individuals. Syria tragically remains a no-go zone, a stark example of how conflict can transform a nation. Yemen, a country at the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula, is next on our list. This is a nation plagued by a complex and devastating mix of political unrest, armed conflict, and a severe humanitarian crisis. The U.S. Department of State advises against all travel to Yemen, and the reasons are stark. The risk of kidnapping, terrorism, and the ongoing civil war make it an incredibly perilous place for any outsider. The fabric of society here has been stretched to its breaking point, and the consequences are dire. The conflict in Yemen involves multiple factions, including government forces, Houthi rebels, and various other armed groups, often with international backing. This creates a volatile and unpredictable security situation where violence can erupt with little warning. Airstrikes, shelling, and ground clashes are common occurrences in many parts of the country. For a traveler, inadvertently straying into a conflict zone or getting caught in the crossfire is a very real and dangerous possibility. The front lines are not always clearly defined. Beyond the immediate dangers of armed conflict, there's the severe risk of kidnapping, particularly for Westerners. Armed groups and criminal gangs see foreigners as high-value targets for ransom or political leverage. This threat is pervasive, meaning constant vigilance and a low profile would be absolutely essential, yet still no guarantee of safety. The U.S. government has explicitly stated its limited ability to provide emergency services to its citizens in Yemen, which underscores the gravity of the situation. You are truly on your own. The humanitarian crisis gripping Yemen is one of the worst in the world. Years of conflict have decimated infrastructure, leading to widespread food insecurity, water shortages, and the collapse of the healthcare system. Diseases like cholera are rampant. Even if one were to avoid the direct violence, the challenges of simply surviving, finding clean water, food, and basic medical care would be immense. This isn't just about avoiding bullets, it's about navigating a societal collapse. For anyone considering travel to Yemen, the message from global safety experts is unambiguous. Don't go. The risks are simply too high, and the potential for things to go catastrophically wrong is enormous. It's a tragic situation for a country with a rich history and culture, now overshadowed by immense suffering and danger. Respecting these warnings isn't about fear, it's about making informed decisions to protect your life. The raw, untamed nature of this conflict zone is something to be taken incredibly seriously. Chapter 4. Venezuela, the grip of instability. Now we head to South America, to Venezuela. This nation, blessed with stunning natural beauty from Caribbean coastlines to Amazonian rainforests, is currently grappling with severe political instability and incredibly high crime rates. The Global Peace Index reflects this turmoil, and numerous travel advisories highlight the dangers of violent crime, civil unrest, and shortages of essential goods. It's a complex situation where societal structures are under immense strain, creating a volatile environment. Violent crime is a major concern in Venezuela, particularly in major cities like Caracas. Armed robbery, carjackings, express kidnappings, where victims are forced to withdraw money from ATMs, and homicide rates are alarmingly high. Even in areas once considered safe, the risk is significant. This means that if you were there, your situational awareness would need to be on hyper alert, 24/7. Understanding no-go zones, avoiding displays of wealth, and traveling with extreme caution would be basic survival tactics. The political situation remains highly polarized and unstable, leading to frequent protests and demonstrations. These can turn violent with little warning, with clashes between protesters and security forces. Getting caught up in such an event could have serious consequences, including injury or arrest. Navigating the political sensitivities would also be crucial. What you say and who you're seen with could be misinterpreted in a charged atmosphere. It's a tightrope walk in many ways. Beyond crime and civil unrest, Venezuela faces severe shortages of food, medicine, clean water, and electricity. This impacts daily life profoundly and can make even simple tasks challenging. Hospitals often lack basic supplies, so a medical emergency can quickly become critical. The crumbling infrastructure adds another layer of difficulty to navigating the country. This isn't just about external threats, it's about the systemic breakdown of essential services we often rely on. The U.S. Department of State, for instance, warns its citizens to reconsider travel, citing these very issues. If you find yourself in a country like Venezuela, contingency planning is paramount. Knowing your evacuation routes, having emergency supplies, and maintaining communication with trusted contacts are vital. It's a stark reminder that even countries not officially at war can present extreme dangers due to internal instability and societal breakdown. The beauty of the land is tragically juxtaposed with the harsh realities on the ground. Chapter 5: Somalia, Navigating the Horn of Africa's Perils. Our journey now takes us to the Horn of Africa, to Somalia. For decades, this nation has been synonymous with instability, facing significant and persistent threats from terrorism, armed conflict, and piracy. The UK Foreign Travel Advice, along with many other international bodies, warns against all travel to most of Somalia, including Puntland and Somaliland, due to the exceptionally high risk of kidnapping, violence, and terrorist attacks. This is a region where the rule of law is fragile at best in many areas. The primary threat in Somalia comes from terrorist groups like Al-Shabaab, which controls significant territory and frequently carries out attacks against government targets, security forces, and civilians. These attacks can include bombings, shootings, and assassinations, often in public places like hotels, markets, and checkpoints. For any outsider, the risk of being caught in such an attack, or directly targeted, is severe. Operating under the radar is not just advisable, it's a fundamental survival necessity. Kidnapping for ransom is another grave danger, particularly for Westerners and those perceived to be working for international organizations. Criminal gangs and militant groups see hostages as a valuable commodity. The reach of these groups can extend even into relatively more stable regions, meaning vigilance can never be relaxed. The consequences of being taken are dire, with lengthy captivities and extreme psychological trauma being common. This isn't a risk to be taken lightly. While piracy off the coast of Somalia has decreased from its peak, the threat hasn't been entirely eradicated. Small boat operations, particularly in the Gulf of Aden and Indian Ocean, still need to exercise extreme caution. On land, the challenges are compounded by a lack of effective governance in many areas, leading to clan-based conflicts and general lawlessness. Access to basic services, including medical care, is severely limited, especially outside of a few urban centers. The official advisories are stark and unequivocal: avoid this region. The dangers are multifaceted and deeply entrenched. If one were forced into a survival situation in Somalia, it would require an incredible amount of local knowledge, an ability to blend in, and immense resilience to navigate the complex social and security landscape. The environment itself, often arid and unforgiving, adds another layer of challenge. Somalia remains one of the world's most dangerous places, a sobering testament to the impact of prolonged conflict and instability. Chapter 6: South Sudan, a nation forged in conflict. We now travel to the heart of Africa, to South Sudan, the world's youngest nation, but one that has been plagued by ongoing conflict and widespread crime since its inception. The U.S. Department of State advises against all travel to South Sudan, citing the critical risk of armed conflict, violent crime, and kidnapping. This is a land of immense natural potential, but its people have endured unimaginable hardship, and the security situation remains incredibly volatile. The country has been embroiled in civil conflict for much of its short history, leading to widespread displacement, humanitarian crises, and a deeply fractured society. While peace agreements have been signed, implementation is slow, and sporadic fighting continues in many regions. Intercommunal violence over resources like cattle and land also contributes to the instability. For a traveler, this means the risk of stumbling into active conflict zones or areas prone to sudden violent outbreaks is very high. Violent crime, including carjackings, armed robberies, and assaults, is rampant, particularly in the capital, Juba, and along major transport routes. The rule of law is weak, and impunity for perpetrators is common. Foreign nationals can be targeted due to perceived wealth. Basic precautions like avoiding travel after dark, not displaying valuables, and varying routines become absolutely critical survival measures. But even these offer no guarantees in such a high-threat environment. Kidnapping, both for political reasons and for ransom, is a significant concern. Aid workers and foreign nationals have been among those targeted. The U.S. Embassy in Juba has limited ability to provide assistance to citizens outside the capital, meaning if you get into trouble in a remote area, you are largely on your own. The lack of infrastructure, including paved roads and reliable communication networks, further complicates any emergency response. South Sudan presents an extreme environment where survival depends on constant threat assessment and a deep understanding of the local dynamics. The humanitarian situation is dire, with millions facing food insecurity. Access to healthcare is severely limited. It's a place where the dangers are not just from human actors, but also from the harsh conditions and lack of essential services. The official advice is clear. The risks of traveling to South Sudan are unacceptably high for ordinary travelers. Our focus now shifts to Iraq, a country with an ancient heritage, but one that has endured decades of conflict, insurgency, and terrorism. Despite some improvements in security in certain areas, Iraq remains a high-risk destination. Travel advisories from multiple international sources, including the UK and US governments, continue to warn against all but essential travel to large parts of the country due to the unpredictable security situation and the ongoing threat of terrorism. The primary danger in Iraq stems from terrorist groups, including remnants of ISIS, which still possess the capability to carry out attacks. These can take the form of bombings, shootings, and kidnappings, targeting both Iraqi security forces and civilians, as well as foreign interests. Areas near former front lines or those with a history of sectarian tension can be particularly volatile. Even in cities like Baghdad, the risk of sporadic attacks remains a serious concern. Beyond terrorism, there's the risk of sectarian violence and clashes between various armed militias. The political situation is complex and can shift rapidly, sometimes leading to unrest and demonstrations that can turn violent. Navigating this landscape requires a deep understanding of local power dynamics and potential flashpoints, something incredibly difficult for an outsider to achieve. The presence of unexploded ordnance and remnants of war in many areas also poses a silent but deadly threat. Kidnapping for political leverage or criminal ransom remains a significant threat, particularly for Westerners. Foreign nationals are often seen as high-value targets. This means maintaining a low profile, varying routines, and having robust security arrangements are not just advisable but essential for anyone operating in the country for professional reasons. For the average traveler, these precautions are often beyond reach, making the risks untenable. While parts of Iraq, particularly the Kurdistan region in the north, have generally experienced better security, even these areas are not immune to threats, including occasional rocket or drone attacks near borders or military installations. The overarching message from security experts is one of extreme caution. Iraq's path to stability is ongoing, but for now, it remains a place where the potential for danger is high, and the consequences of misjudgment can be severe. Thorough research and heeding official warnings are paramount. We now venture into the Central African Republic, a landlocked nation that, despite its rich natural resources, is one of the poorest and most unstable countries in the world. The Global Peace Index consistently ranks the Central African Republic at or near the very bottom, highlighting the extreme levels of violence and insecurity. Decades of political turmoil, coups, and armed rebellions have left the state weak and much of the country outside of government control. This is a place where survival is a daily struggle for many. Armed groups control vast swaths of territory in the Central African Republic, often fighting amongst themselves or against government forces and their international allies. Civilians are frequently caught in the crossfire or directly targeted. Violence can be brutal and indiscriminate, including killing, sexual violence, and looting. For any traveler, the risk of encountering these armed groups, roadblocks, or active conflict is exceptionally high, especially outside the capital, Bangui. The capital city itself, Bangui, is not immune to violence and crime. Armed robberies, carjackings, and assaults are common. There's a heavy presence of UN peacekeepers and national security forces, but their ability to ensure widespread safety is limited. Movement, particularly after dark, is highly restricted and dangerous. The general atmosphere can be one of tension and unpredictability, where a seemingly calm situation can escalate rapidly. Basic infrastructure in the Central African Republic is severely lacking. Roads are often impassable, especially during the rainy season. Access to healthcare is extremely limited, and even minor medical issues can become life-threatening due to a lack of facilities, supplies, and trained personnel. Communication networks are unreliable. This means that if you run into trouble, getting help or evacuating can be an immense challenge, if not impossible, in many parts of the country. Travel advisories from virtually all Western governments strongly advise against any travel to the Central African Republic. The risks are deemed unacceptably high due to the pervasive violence, political instability, and lack of state control. It's a tragic situation for a country with such potential, but the reality on the ground is grim. This is a clear example of a destination where the dangers far outweigh any conceivable reason for casual travel. Prudence dictates staying well clear. Our penultimate destination is Libya, a North African nation that has been mired in armed conflict and political chaos since the 2011 uprising. The UK Foreign Travel Advice, along with advisories from the US and other governments, strongly advises against all travel to Libya. The country remains deeply divided, with rival governments and a multitude of armed militias vying for power and control over territory and resources, creating an extremely dangerous and unpredictable environment. The security situation across Libya is highly volatile. Clashes between armed groups can erupt with little or no warning, including in major urban areas like Tripoli and Benghazi. These can involve heavy weaponry, artillery, and airstrikes, posing a severe risk to anyone in the vicinity. The presence of various extremist groups, including those affiliated with ISIS and Al-Qaeda, adds another layer of terrorist threat, including bombings and kidnappings. Kidnapping for ransom or political motives is a significant and persistent danger for foreign nationals throughout Libya. Various militias and criminal gangs operate with considerable impunity, and Westerners are often specifically targeted. The ability of any foreign government to provide consular assistance in Libya is extremely limited, meaning if you get into trouble, you are effectively on your own in a lawless environment. This is not a risk to be underestimated. Years of conflict have severely damaged Libya's infrastructure. Access to essential services like electricity, clean water, and medical care is unreliable and often non-existent in many areas. Hospitals struggle with shortages of staff, medicine, and equipment. Navigating the country is made difficult by damaged roads, numerous checkpoints often manned by unpredictable armed groups, and the general breakdown of law and order. The vast desert terrain can also be incredibly unforgiving if you run into trouble. The overarching advice from all official sources is clear: do not travel to Libya. The risks from armed conflict, terrorism, crime, and kidnapping are exceptionally high. The political situation remains unstable, with no clear path to a unified and secure state in the immediate future. It's a stark reminder of how internal divisions and power vacuums can render a country perilous, even one with significant oil wealth. Staying informed and heeding these grave warnings is absolutely critical for personal safety. Finally, we arrive in Haiti, a Caribbean nation that has faced a relentless series of challenges, including political instability, rampant crime, and devastating natural disasters. The U.S. Department of State advises travelers to reconsider travel to Haiti, and in some cases to avoid it altogether, due to the high risk of kidnapping, violent crime, and civil unrest. This is a country of incredible spirit and culture, but one that is currently navigating an extremely difficult period. Violent crime is a pervasive issue in Haiti, particularly in Port-au-Prince and other urban areas. Gangs control significant portions of the capital and their influence is spreading. Armed robbery, carjackings, assaults, and homicides are alarmingly common. Kidnapping for ransom is a major concern, targeting both Haitians and foreign nationals, often indiscriminately. The security situation can deteriorate rapidly with little warning, making even seemingly safe areas potentially dangerous. Political instability has plagued Haiti for years, leading to frequent protests, roadblocks, and civil unrest. These demonstrations can turn violent quickly, with clashes between protesters, rival groups, and security forces. Navigating the country can become impossible when roads are blocked and essential services are disrupted. The lack of a strong, stable government presence exacerbates the security vacuum, allowing criminal elements to operate with greater freedom. Haiti is also highly vulnerable to natural disasters, including hurricanes, earthquakes, and flooding. The devastating earthquake of 2010 is a stark reminder of this. When these events occur, they compound the existing challenges, destroying infrastructure, displacing populations, and overwhelming already strained emergency services. Recovery is often slow and hampered by the ongoing security and political crises, making the aftermath incredibly tough. While the Haitian people show incredible resilience, the current environment presents profound risks for travelers. The U.S. Embassy has limited ability to assist citizens in emergencies, particularly if widespread unrest or a natural disaster occurs. Shortages of fuel, food, and medical supplies can become acute. Careful consideration of the U.S. Department of State advisories and other official warnings is essential. This is a situation that demands utmost caution and a realistic assessment of the dangers involved. So there you have it, a sobering look at 10 of the world's most dangerous travel destinations for 2025. It's a stark reminder that while our planet is full of beauty and wonder, there are places where the risks are incredibly high, where survival itself is a daily challenge. Remember, safety should always be your top priority when planning your travels, or even when just learning about these complex regions from afar. This knowledge isn't meant to scare, but to empower you with awareness. The world is constantly changing, and so are the risks. Stay informed, heed travel advisories from your government and other reputable international sources, and always have a contingency plan, especially if your work or passion takes you to challenging environments. Being prepared, understanding the local context, and knowing when to say no, This is too dangerous are all crucial survival skills in themselves. Never underestimate the power of good intelligence and a cautious mindset. Thanks for watching Global Tracks. I'm Yusuf Matundala, and I hope this has been insightful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more travel updates and global insights. Disclaimer: this video is for informational purposes only. Always consult official travel advisories before making travel plans. Safety tip: register with your embassy and keep emergency contacts handy when traveling to high-risk areas or any area for that matter. Stay safe out there and make smart choices.